This is Bedtime Stories, Grownup Edition, The War Room, Part 16. When we left off, we found out that straight-laced Q is a stone cold killer, and Ace Newport just woke up the monster. Q called Jeffrey to find out where Angela is, and Angela and the kids are in a small room together. We don't know where, and we don't know why. What we do know is that Angela is replaying the events that led her to flee to Puerto Rico with the children. After the ceiling collapsed on Q and the two intruders due to the fire, and Mom Brenda had pushed Angela and the children into the tunnel and closed and locked the door behind them, Angela and the children ran through the tunnel and into the bunker. They remained there until the following night, after the fire department was done putting out the fire, the police were done processing the crime scene, and the news media had packed up and moved on to other interesting stories. When Angela had her bearings and the coast appeared to be clear, she called Jeffrey. She wasn't at all surprised to learn that he knew about what transpired at the house. And when she informed him of Q's instructions, he said, "Angela, I'm just glad that you and the children are alive. I'll get you somewhere safe. Send me your coordinates and Artemis's phone number, and I'll send you instructions." Angela did as Jeffrey asked, and he told her to go to a gas station a little less than 2 miles from her location. At 3 o'clock in the morning, Angela and 4 children, well, she carried baby Chance, but 3 children walked nearly 2 miles in the dark through the woods, exhausted and scared. When they finally got there, they fell into the car that matched the description in Jeffrey's text, and inside was Q's uncle, Art. They rode to the airport hangar owned by Art, and when they arrived, he flew Angela and the children to New York City in one of the Cessnas owned by the family. On the way, while the kids were sleeping, Angela told Art all that she knew, and Art told Angela all he knew. A group of men similar in size to the group who ran up in Angela and Q's house ran up in the Queen Mother and Pops Andy's house. Luckily, Q had installed cameras in the woods surrounding his parents' house in Fort Worth. So when the Queen Mother was alerted to human movement in the woods, she checked the cameras and went into action. She sent Anya down to her panic room and had her call 911 using the relay. Then she texted Q, shut off power to her house, and waited for the men to enter her home, armed to the hilt. When the men started coming in the front and the back door, the Queen Mother picked them off one by one. She was laying down, flat on her belly, on the second floor of her house, on the catwalk, pointing a rifle with a scope and a silencer. When the men stopped coming in, none of them were moving, and she didn't get any more alerts on her phone about movement around her house. Then she joined Anya in her panic room, called Q from the satellite phone, and waited. Q called Pops Andy and told him to get home. Then he called Angela, no answer. He called LJ, no answer. He called Regina, no answer. When he checked his cameras at home, he saw that Angela and the children were in the panic room and his house was full of men with guns. He knew that it was a coordinated plot against his loved ones. Since Angela and the children were safe for the time being, he sent her the text and then went into Operation Save Everybody. He called Donovan and sent him to get Veronica and Bella and await further instructions. And then he went straight to LJ's house. He knew that since LJ was undergoing chemotherapy, he'd be too weak to fight off a house full of intruders if as many men who showed up to his house and his parents' house showed up to LJ's. When he got there, Regina was gone. LJ had been hit over the head, and he informed Q that Mom Joyce, Regina's mother, had taken their children to the Universal Soul Circus. Q called Donovan and sent him there to pick them up. Uncle Art told Angela that Mom Brenda and the fire department were able to get Q out of the house in time. He suffered minor bruises, cuts, scrapes, a concussion, and first and second degree burns on his arms, legs, and chest. Mom Brenda was in the hospital, but Uncle Art didn't know her condition. Marcia was dead, and Rennie and Regina had been kidnapped. And Angela and the children were presumed dead inside the house. Then he told her that Donovan took Veronica, Bella, Mom Joyce, L3, Lena, and Regina and LJ's baby boy, Anders, somewhere safe. But he had no idea where Stephanie was. When they got to New York, Jeffrey had already arranged for a private plane to take Angela and the children to Puerto Rico. He secured identities under their assumed names, had the estate manager send out just the necessary staff to run the household, and ensured they were all background checked and bonded. In addition, they'd all learned from that whole situation with Jessica, so they had the estate manager ensure that the staff had no families, no liabilities, no debts, no other incentives to participate in a plot against Angela and the children. In addition, the staff were not allowed to leave the property at any time for any reason, unless they were doing so at Angela's request. They weren't allowed to contact any family or friends or inform anyone of their whereabouts. Unfortunately, this didn't apply to the security team. In order to be effective, the security team had to work in rotating shifts. As trained professionals, they were expected to be able to come and go from the property, but only the head security and his backup were privy to Angela and the children's true identity. They had to know who they really were in order to actually keep them safe. When 2 weeks had passed without a word from anyone, Angela contacted the estate manager, and he told her that Stephanie was in an undisclosed location and that they would all need to stay put until further notice. She had him contact Jeffrey and hire a tutor for the kids and find a therapist for them all. Angela looked at the four walls of the small room that her and the children were in and said, "God, please help us." At that moment, her first cousin, Dr. Miranda Lopez, and Javier, the head of her security team, walked into the room. Dr. Lopez was carrying a tray of food that she handed to Angela, and then she asked, "Is it okay for the children to come in the dining room and sit and eat there?" When Angela said yes, Dr. Lopez took the children to the dining room, and then she returned. She said, "Angela, you and the children really do not have to be squeezed in this room. There's more than enough space in this house for each of you to have your own room." Angela said, "I know, and I really appreciate you, but I'm just not ready to let them out of my sight yet. I think we'll sleep in here together tonight, if that's okay." Miranda said, "Okay, and I understand. But please know, y'all are all safe here. And remember, you want the children to be able to bounce back. Part of developing the kind of resiliency that they're going to need for their own futures is returning to as normal of a day-to-day life as possible and showing them that everything is okay." Then Javier said, "Mrs. St. James, you did an awesome job. Your children are safe, and in large part to you." Angela said, "I still don't understand how he was able to get that close." Javier said, "I wish that I would have been able to identify the mole sooner. But the reality is, things moved really fast. Your assailants were smart. They just weren't smart enough. I'd weeded the mole down to 2 possible men, and your uncle put a man on each one. What we know now is that Ace Newport knew about some of the properties that your family owns. He also knew that you got married here on the island. He saw the Essence magazine article written on you after you returned home from your honeymoon. When Angela did her 40 under 40 interview with Essence magazine, Stephanie offered them an exclusive interview where Angela would share her life story with them. They took her up on that offer after the wedding. While Angela didn't tell them that she owned the property in Puerto Rico, it was mentioned in the article because of Angela's social media posts and the posts made by her influencer. The magazine did their due diligence and posted the owner's name in the article. It just so happens that the owner on record is a holding company. And Ace Newport knew that the same holding company owned the house where Tracey and Tre were hiding out. He also knew from his nephew, Deacon Davis, that Angela and her family owned properties all across the country. Javier said Ace put 2 and 2 together and concluded that you owned the property where you got married. Plus, you were just here days before your family was attacked, and he knew that too. So he sent men in to scour the island and see if they could find someone who they could compromise and get on the property. They lucked up one night when Raphael visited one of the bars in the area. He was drunk and bragging about protecting a rich black woman from the mainland. Raphael was one of the low-level security guards, so he didn't know Angela and the children's identity. He barely, if ever, even interacted with them because he was relegated to doing tours and rounds around the first level of the house only. Javier said, "One of the men who was sent here by Ace to find you all had been frequenting that bar, and he was there that night when Raphael was bragging. He drugged him and then blackmailed him with photos that showed him in a compromising situation with another man. In an effort to keep those photos from becoming public, Raphael agreed to inform them when you were off the property. Now, that I didn't even find out about until today. And I had some help getting that information. Because you were constantly under guard, the few days that they attempted to tell you, they had no luck intercepting you in public. One of the main reasons why I assigned an individual guard to each one of you was because I knew it would increase the likelihood that they would notice patterns, faces. And I made sure that those guards were higher up in the hierarchy. The day that you and the children went out on the beach, it was your guard who spotted a man on the public access area who he was pretty sure he'd also seen in Dr. Lopez's office. He conferred with Michael's guard, and he confirmed that he'd also seen that same man outside of Dr. Lopez's office when he went with Michael there. When they informed me, I knew immediately something was up. So I personally followed him the rest of the day. He left the beach as soon as he realized that there was no way that he could get to you or the children. I saw him meet up with several men, and they were clearly not natives or tourists. They were hired guns. I notified your uncle. He immediately assigned a team of men to assist me with protecting you. I also flew in 20 additional men of my own. In total, there were almost 50 additional men in and around your property, completely unseen. All of them trained for the art of war. Both of the guards who were suspected of being moles were off that night. One of them went home and never left. But Raphael went to that same bar where he met the man initially. When the man came in, they talked briefly, then they both left in separate vehicles. I sent one man to follow the assailant, and I followed Raphael. When I saw that he was headed to your property, I immediately notified the head of your uncle's security and your night shift guard. But when your guard went to your room to wake you up and tell you to follow the instructions that I provided you, you weren't there. He freaked out and abandoned his post. Instead of letting me know right away, he goes and starts searching the house. So when I got your text, instead of the follow-up one that I was expecting from him, I was pissed and confused. Then Angela told him about waking up, going to the villa, her walk back from the villa, and everything that transpired during that walk and after. Angela said, when he opened the door, I recognized him as one of the security guards who'd been in the house, but I knew he shouldn't have been on the second floor. He tried to tell me you sent him for me, and before he could finish, I blew his brains out. Javier said, I made it explicitly clear to you that under no circumstances would I send anybody to get you on my behalf. Angela said, right. So I immediately knew he was lying. Then Javier said, but Mrs. St. James, you had instructions. You were not supposed to move around the property, not even inside the house, without your personal guard, at least not until the whole mole situation was resolved. Angela said, honestly, I completely forgot. It was late, early in the morning, and I had a one-track mind or spirit. I was focused on getting to the villa, praying for my family and friends, and just feeling closer to my husband. I heard my personal guard sitting in the sitting room talking to another guard, and I walked right past them. I wasn't even thinking about them. And somehow, they didn't see or hear me. It was almost like I was invisible. Javier said, well, they both failed you, and they'll both pay for it. Angela said, no, Javier, no. God makes no mistakes. They weren't supposed to see me. Had I not gone to the villa alone, I wouldn't have had the benefit of clear vision and complete silence. Being alone allowed me to focus, and it allowed me to recognize that I was in danger, and it allowed me to take the necessary action. Tell me, what happened after I ran in the house? Javier said, well, Raphael didn't see you run in the house. I know because he was actually on the other side of the property, and so was I. The sound you heard was him creeping through the woods, but he was way too far away to even see you. I had on night vision goggles, and I didn't see you. I still don't know how you heard him. Angela said, it was nothing but God. Then Javier said, he entered the house through the side door. At the same time, Ace's men entered through the back and front door. Their plan was to ambush the security, and between them and Raphael, find you and the children. What they didn't know was that they were the ones walking into the ambush. I had already alerted your uncle's men, radioed to warn the head guard, and I saw on the cameras when your guard went in your room and you weren't there, so he ran downstairs into the fray. Angela said, that's because I came up the back stairs. I had to go in the study and get my gun. And then I went into Michael's room. Javier said, oh, okay. Well, our men hit the lights all over the property after they were all in position. And as soon as those men breached the doors, the gunfight ensued. Not one of them was left standing. Well, except for the one who blackmailed Raphael. Angela said, did he get away? Please tell me he's not still out there. Javier said, no, he didn't escape. He's in the middle of an intense conversation with some men who love you, and they're not too happy with his decisions.